So there's some aspects of the Masonic model in the ball earthing that people have never really brought into consideration. When I was a child, I never really thought about the impossibility of a lot of these things that we were being told. The ball model in every aspect cannot be reproduced in a laboratory to scale in any aspect. None of these aspects that they describe, orbiting large masses in the middle of vacuum, orbiting, make something orbit in the laboratory. Let me see that. Let's do that. Now you have to add to the problem, the balls are liquid balls. So they're saying that our Earth is made of mostly like 99.9999% liquid. So when we see this bulb on the news and they're spinning the ball before they tell you all their lies and things, you're imagining that that ball is like a marble, right? Obama said we're on a marble, right? But marbles aren't made of liquid. Marbles aren't water. Marbles are made of glass, right? The model that we're actually being taught is that we live on something called the crust. And then underneath the crust is all this molten rock. And this molten rock creates something that we would call a mass of heat, an interminable, like an immense mass of heat when you compare the proportion. You compare the proportion. Imagine that the Earth would be something like an apple, and that skin would be the crust, and then all of the meat of that apple is, number one, it's liquid, it's fluid. It could, in the real world, it would be, seeking for its own level, not maintaining a weird ball-shaped pear or oblate, spheroid, or whatever they call it, shape. They wouldn't do that. But the heat mass is this enormous problem. Like, so you've got, could we possibly heat stone into a liquid and then cover it with extremely thin crust, and that thin crust just wouldn't instantly melt? I mean, does a material exist in which we could make that crust? Now, is the crust of our Earth made of that material? Certainly not. But that material doesn't exist. I don't believe so. And so people want to say, well, why are there volcanoes? Well, you'll have to come up with some other explanation, won't you? Because if your idea is that everything under the Earth there is this molten rock, that's going to be very difficult. It'll be impossible to demonstrate in a laboratory that molten rock can behave in this way, and that we could have something called the crust hugging that molten rock and not melting, and then we have water hugging that rock, and then it's all flying in the middle of nothing, orbiting things, doing all these strange movements and having all these odd properties. Another thing not so often talked about is the air pressure problem, that you also cannot maintain air pressure against a vacuum, against that kind of a situation, sometimes discussed. And I don't know, I guess if you're talking about these aspects, the molten rock thing just seems to be a pretty odd aspect of the ball model in general. Now, what about the aesthetic? What is the aesthetic that these Freemasons are going for? Well, I think they're perverts, they're Satan worshipers, so they just kind of like balls in general. They think of balls like two butt cheeks or two tits or two testicles or two. They think of balls and they laugh at it. They think of it as sort of a perverted thing. And so even like in elementary school, if you say the word ball, some kids will giggle, They'll giggle, they think the word ball is funny because it's sort of a naughty word or something, and this is what the Freemasons are doing in a way. Now, James Cavendish in 1798, 99 said that he hung two balls in his shed to weigh the earth. Is that a coincidence? I don't know. Why is it always like two balls? This is sort of very, very strange. And the name of Satan in one particular language in antiquity was Baal, B-A-A-L. And that's a pretty strange coincidence, all these things sort of tying together in this way. And they have this kind of unique prejudice in the anti-scientific world, or the anti-natural scientific world, where they want to say things are balls. And so you take it down to the atomic level, and they're saying that everything that we're sitting on, we're breathing, that's all balls, you know? They'll show us balls. Now, you and I have never seen these balls, right? And we can extend this argument when somebody gets sick. And what does the Freemason tell you? He says, you've got these like spiny, nasty looking balls in your body. You turn on the TV and they've got all these weird, chemical medicines, pharmaceuticals. And the pharmaceuticals companies create their advertisements also with computer graphics. And they're saying basically your problem, you've got itchy skin, or you've got vaginal infection, or whatever's wrong with you. The problem is you've got these balls in you, and then you've got to get these balls out. And they'll get creative. They'll say that this medicine are like little men, and they'll do computer graphic men that are like smashing the balls or killing the balls. But that's a pretty weird thing. I mean, we're living ever more in a world of just computer graphics, and then people are being conditioned to this idea that the computer graphics are somehow describing some truth of natural science, when natural science is based on observation. So when we actually want to do science in a positive sense, in a noble sense, you need to be observing things, testing things, and then that test needs to be repeated by somebody else. Anything that isn't observable, proven, and tested does not have any part of natural science. So you would probably be pretty surprised to find out that, like these balls that they call viruses, and they show us computer graphics, have never been seen in fresh human blood. I mean, this would be a massive red pill, a massive slap to the face. What do you mean? These things have never been observed. These things have never been observed. Some people say, I look up in a telescope, I see balls, I see planet balls. But last night I got my camera out and I focused in on a star, and it definitely didn't look like a ball. And, well, back when I looked at other people's videos of stars done with the same machine, the P900, P1000, I began to wonder, like, what's in a telescope that would possibly make this star, look like a ball? I don't know, but all I know is that within the telescope there are mirrors, there are other things, there are other tricks, other things within a telescope that in the end stabilize the image when a star is not at all stable. Like we sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, the stars and the wandering stars are not stable, they're always twinkling. So why is it you look in a telescope and there's no twinkling? There's no movement. That should be a clue that the telescope is giving you a false image, that there are things within the telescope that are making your observation much less direct than it could be. Some other things about flat Earth, I think, really worth discussing is that the flat Earth model that comes from the Bible, but it is also traditional in every civilization and history, that determined in its time how people understood their world, their position in the world.